Ethan Carter sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had been feeling uneasy for weeks, ever since his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, started acting strangely. Lily had always been an energetic, happy little girl, but lately she had become withdrawn. She barely spoke, avoided eye contact, and flinched at sudden movements. At first, Ethan and his wife, Sarah, thought it was just a phase, maybe school stress or trouble with friends. But then the nightmares started. Lily would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, soaked in sweat, her tiny body trembling. When Ethan rushed to her side, she would cling to him and cry, but no matter how gently he asked what was wrong, she would only shake her head. "She won't talk to me, Sarah," Ethan had whispered to his wife one night after Lily had fallen back asleep. "Something is scaring her. I need to find out what." Sarah hesitated before responding. "Maybe we should talk to her teacher? Or a therapist?" "We will," Ethan had said. "But I need to know what is happening first." That's when the idea struck him. A hidden recorder. If Lily wouldn't or couldn't talk, maybe he could listen. Now, sitting in his car outside their home, Ethan reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a tiny recording device. It was small, barely the size of a quarter, and easily concealable. It had a long battery life and enough storage to capture an entire day's worth of audio. Ethan had worked in tech for years, and he knew this wasn't exactly ethical. He wasn't comfortable spying on his daughter, but this wasn't just about curiosity. This was about her safety. He stepped out of the car and walked inside. Lily was in the living room watching cartoons, her favorite stuffed bunny clutched in her arms. "Hey, sweetheart," Ethan said, sitting beside her. "Come here for a second." Lily crawled into his lap, resting her head against his chest. She had been extra clingy lately, another sign that something was wrong. "I got something cool for you," Ethan said, carefully brushing her soft brown hair behind her ears. "It's like a little magic clip. It helps Daddy hear you when I'm not around." He gently fastened the tiny device inside the small braid Sarah had done earlier that morning. It was nearly invisible, hidden beneath layers of hair. Lily didn't react much, just gave him a tired nod. Ethan kissed the top of her head, his stomach twisting. He wanted nothing more than for this to be an overreaction. He prayed he wouldn't hear anything unusual. But deep down, he had a terrible feeling. He had no idea that what he was about to hear would change their lives forever. Ethan sat in his home office, staring at his laptop screen. The small recorder had been transmitting audio to a secured cloud drive, and now, as the evening set in and Lily was safely asleep, he was about to listen to the first recording. His hands trembled as he clicked play. At first, it was just normal sounds, Lily humming to herself, the rustling of her clothes as she played, the television murmuring in the background. The audio captured a mix of the house's ambient noises, the fridge humming, a door creaking, Sarah cooking in the kitchen. Ethan exhaled, relieved. Maybe he was just overreacting. But then, about an hour into the recording, the atmosphere shifted. The first strange thing he heard was Lily's voice, whispering, "No, I don't want to." Ethan's heart stopped. There was silence for a moment, and then, barely audible, another voice, low and gravelly. "Don't be scared, Lily." Ethan froze. His breath hitched in his throat. The voice wasn't Sarah's. It wasn't his. And it definitely wasn't Lily's teacher or anyone who should be in their home. It was a man. Ethan's hands shook as he dragged the progress bar forward. He needed to know more. Lily's breathing became rapid in the recording, shallow and frightened. "Mommy said not to talk to strangers." A chilling chuckle followed. "But I'm not a stranger, sweet girl. I'm your friend. You remember me, don't you?" "No," Lily whimpered. The man let out a sigh, disappointed. "That's okay. You'll remember soon." A sound of something shifting like fabric rustling. Then footsteps, heavy and slow. Ethan's stomach churned. He clenched his fists, rage and terror mixing in his veins. Then, a whisper. "Don't tell Mommy and Daddy." And the recording cut out. Ethan shot up from his chair, knocking over his coffee mug. The warm liquid spread across his desk, but he didn't care. His mind was spinning, his body rigid with fear. Someone had been in his house, talking to his daughter. And Lily never told them. Ethan stormed into Lily's room, his breath coming in short, panicked bursts. He found her curled up under her blanket, her stuffed bunny pressed tightly to her chest. His heart ached as he knelt beside her, brushing her hair gently. She stirred, blinking up at him sleepily. "Daddy?" Ethan forced a smile, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Hey, sweetheart. You okay?" Lily nodded, but there was something in her eyes, something distant. "Lily," Ethan hesitated. He had to be careful. "Did someone talk to you today?" She froze. A flash of fear passed over her little face. She squeezed her bunny tighter. I don't remember, she whispered. Ethan clenched his jaw. That was a lie. Someone had gotten into their house. Someone had spoken to his daughter and she was too scared to say a word about it. And Ethan was going to find out who. Ethan barely slept that night. Every creak of the house made his skin prickle with unease. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the recording in his mind over and over. Someone had been in their home. Or worse, what if they still were? At 3:12 a.m., he finally gave up on sleep. He slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake Sarah, and crept through the darkened house. The hallway seemed longer than usual, every shadow stretching unnaturally in the dim moonlight filtering through the windows. He checked the locks first. The front door secure. The back door secure. The windows locked. There was no sign of forced entry. No signs of anything unusual. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Moving cautiously, he made his way to Lily's room. The soft glow of her nightlight cast a warm, golden hue over the pink walls. She was still curled up in bed, her tiny frame rising and falling with each breath. Ethan stepped inside, moving toward her bed. But then, a sound. A faint tap. He spun around, his pulse hammering in his throat. The noise had come from the closet. Ethan's mouth went dry. He had checked the closet earlier before putting Lily to bed. It had been empty. Was it still? Holding his breath, he took slow, deliberate steps toward the closet door. The closer he got, the heavier the air felt. His fingers twitched as he reached for the handle. Another tap. It was so soft, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Ethan yanked the door open. Nothing. Just Lily's dresses, a pile of stuffed animals, and a few scattered toys on the floor. He let out a shaky breath. Maybe he was imagining things. Maybe. Then he noticed something. The stuffed animals in the corner. They weren't arranged the way they usually were. Lily was meticulous about how she placed them. Her bunny always in the middle, the others surrounding it like a protective circle. But now the bunny was off to the side. And there, in its place, was something else. A small, carved wooden figure. Ethan frowned and picked it up. It was rough to the touch, worn down and shaped like a man. The carving was crude, but the figure had long, sharp fingers and hollow, empty eyes. His stomach twisted. Daddy! Ethan jumped, nearly dropping the wooden figure. Lily was awake, rubbing her sleepy eyes. What's wrong, sweetheart? He asked, forcing his voice to stay calm. She stared at the wooden figure in his hand. Her lip quivered. He left that, she whispered. Ethan crouched beside her bed, his heart pounding. Who, baby? Lily swallowed hard. Her tiny hands gripped her blanket as she whispered two words that made Ethan's blood run cold. The Whisper Man. Ethan's blood turned to ice. The Whisper Man? He repeated, barely able to get the words out. Lily gave the smallest nod, her fingers gripping her blanket so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ethan forced himself to stay calm. Sweetheart. Who is the Whisper Man? Lily hesitated. Her eyes darted toward the closet, then back to Ethan. He talks to me when you and Mommy aren't around. Ethan swallowed hard. What does he say? Lily's breathing quickened. He tells me secrets. Secrets. Ethan felt sick. What kind of secrets? Lily didn't answer. She just pulled the blanket over her face, shaking her head. Ethan clenched his fists. He needed to get her out of this house. Now, moving quickly, he scooped her up into his arms. Come on, sweetheart. You're going to sleep in Mommy and Daddy's room tonight. Okay? She didn't protest. She clung to him tightly as he carried her down the hall. Sarah stirred as they entered the bedroom. Ethan? She mumbled sleepily. What's wrong? Ethan laid Lily down beside her. Just a bad dream, he lied. She'll be safer with us. Sarah blinked in confusion but nodded, wrapping an arm around Lily protectively. Ethan didn't sleep the rest of the night. He sat up in bed, staring at the door, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But the house remained silent. Too silent. Ethan wasted no time. As soon as Lily was awake, he knelt beside the bed and gently took her hands in his. Sweetheart, I need you to tell me about the Whisper Man. Lily looked down at her lap, her little face pale. He doesn't like when I talk about him. Ethan's jaw tightened. You're safe with me, baby. I promise. She hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, He comes when it's quiet. He whispers in my ear. He tells me I belong to him. Ethan felt like the floor had been ripped out from under him. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Ethan. Lily kept talking, her voice distant. He says he's been here before, that I used to know him, but I don't remember. Her voice broke. I don't want to remember. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. His pulse was racing. This was beyond a normal intruder. Whoever this whisper man was, he had gotten into their house, had been near their daughter, had left that thing in her room. Ethan was done waiting. He was going to catch him. He looked at Sarah. Take Lily to your mom's house. Now. Sarah nodded, fear flashing in her eyes. What are you going to do? Ethan clenched his jaw. I'm going to find him. Ethan paced the living room, his mind racing. Lily and Sarah had left for Sarah's mother's house an hour ago, and the house felt eerily empty without them. But that was exactly what Ethan wanted. If the whisper man was coming back, he'd be ready. He grabbed his laptop and pulled up the recording from the previous day. He listened again to the chilling exchange between Lily and the unknown man. His skin crawling at the sound of that low, gravelly voice. Don't tell mommy and daddy. Ethan clenched his fists. Who was this man? And how had he gotten into the house without leaving a trace? Then an idea struck him. He rewound the recording to the very end, to the moment right before the audio cut off. He listened closely, rustling, a low exhale, and then, faint creak. Ethan sat up straight. That sound, it was familiar. He knew every noise this house made. The creak had come from the attic. His stomach twisted. He grabbed a flashlight and headed down the hall. At the end of the corridor, just outside Lily's room, was the pull-down attic door. He hadn't been up there in months. There was nothing but old boxes and forgotten junk. Or so he thought. Taking a deep breath, Ethan reached up and pulled the cord. The ladder unfolded with a soft groan. Dust rained down from the opening. He hesitated. Every instinct told him this was a bad idea. But he had to know. He climbed the ladder slowly, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The attic smelled musty, like aged wood and insulation. He swept the light across the space, his pulse hammering. At first, everything looked normal. Boxes. Old furniture. A pile of Lily's baby clothes Sarah had meant to donate. But then, in the farthest corner, something caught his eye. A small pile of crumpled candy wrappers. His breath hitched. Those hadn't been there before. Then, just beside the wrappers, he saw something worse. A blanket. A dirty, tattered blanket arranged in a way that could only mean one thing. Someone had been sleeping here. Ethan's stomach churned. The whisper man hadn't been breaking in. He had been living in their house. Ethan's hands shook as he backed away. His mind was spinning. How long had he been here? How long had he been watching them? He turned to climb down when a soft creak behind him. Ethan whipped around, flashlight shaking in his grip. Nothing. Just the empty attic. But the air felt different now. He could feel it. He wasn't alone. Then, a whisper. Right behind him. You shouldn't have come up here, Ethan. Ethan's body went rigid. The whisper was so close, so chilling that he could feel the breath against the back of his neck. His grip tightened on the flashlight. Slowly, so slowly, he turned around, heart hammering. The attic was still shrouded in darkness, but then his flashlight landed on something that made his blood run cold. A pair of eyes. Deep-set, glinting in the dim light. Watching him. And then, movement. Something shifted in the shadows. A figure unfolded itself from the darkness, stepping forward with slow, deliberate movements. The man, if he could even be called that, was tall, gaunt, his skin stretched too tightly over his face. His hair hung in greasy clumps, his clothes tattered and filthy. But the worst part was his mouth. His lips curled into a grin that was too wide, showing yellowed, jagged teeth. Ethan's throat clenched. He could hardly breathe. How do you know my name? He forced out, his voice hoarse. The whisper man chuckled. It was a dry, rasping sound like leaves scraping against pavement. Oh, Ethan, his head tilted slightly. I've always known your name. Ethan took a step back. His mind was screaming at him to run, but he forced himself to stay still. What do you want? He demanded. The whisper man's grin widened. I only wanted to talk to Lily. She remembers me, you know? His fingers twitched at his sides, long and bony. Even if she doesn't know it yet. Ethan's stomach twisted. This wasn't just some deranged squatter. This man, he had a connection to Lily. And that was the most terrifying part. His instincts kicked in. He needed to get out of here. He needed proof. In one swift movement, he switched on his phone's camera and raised it. But the second he did, the Whisper Man moved. Not like a normal person, there was something wrong about it. He seemed to flicker, 1 second near the attic wall, the next suddenly closer. Ethan stumbled back, nearly tripping over a box. His flashlight swung wildly, and then the Whisper Man was gone, vanished into the darkness. Ethan's chest heaved. His flashlight darted over the attic, but there was nothing. No sound, no movement, just emptiness. Had he imagined it? No. The candy wrappers, the blanket, the whisper in his ear. This was real. Shaking, he bolted for the attic ladder and practically jumped down, landing hard on the hallway floor. He slammed the attic door shut, locking it. His hands were trembling. He had to call Sarah. He had to get Lily somewhere safe. But as he pulled out his phone, his blood turned to ice. Because on his screen, there was a notification. One new voicemail. No number, no caller ID, just static. And then, a whisper. You should have left it alone, Ethan. Ethan's breath came in short, shallow gasps as he gripped his phone, his hands slick with sweat. The voicemail played again, that same chilling whisper crawling into his ears. You should have left it alone, Ethan. The recording ended with a faint, wet chuckle. His heart pounded as he stared at the screen. No number. No trace of where the message had come from. But one thing was clear, the Whisper Man knew exactly what he was doing. Ethan forced himself to move, to push past the fear freezing his body in place. He rushed down the hall, grabbing his car keys off the kitchen counter. He needed to get to Sarah and Lily. He needed to get them far away from here. As he reached the front door, he hesitated. What if the Whisper Man was outside, waiting? No, he couldn't think like that. He had to move. Ethan yanked the door open and froze. A single object sat on the porch. A tape recorder. Ethan's stomach clenched. The Whisper Man was toying with him. His hands shook as he bent down and picked it up. His thumb hovered over the play button. He didn't want to press it, didn't want to hear what was on it. But he had no choice. With a deep breath, he pressed play. Static crackled through the tiny speaker. Then, soft breathing. And then, Lily's voice. Daddy. Ethan's blood turned to ice. I don't like this game. Lily's recorded voice whispered. Please stop. Then came a sound. A soft rustling, like someone shifting closer. And then the Whisper Man spoke. I told you, sweet girl. You belong to me. Ethan threw the tape recorder against the wall, shattering it into pieces. He bolted for the car, his vision tunneling. He had to get to Sarah and Lily. He had to. His phone rang. He nearly dropped it in his panic. Without checking the caller ID, he answered. Sarah? But it wasn't Sarah. A familiar voice rasped through the speaker. You can run, Ethan, the Whisper Man said. But you'll never be fast enough. The line went dead. Ethan's vision blurred with rage and terror. His grip tightened on the wheel. The Whisper Man had been in their home. He had spoken to Lily. He had left proof. And now he was coming for them. Ethan slammed the car into drive and tore down the street. He wasn't going to let that happen. Not while he was still breathing. Ethan's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His heart pounded against his ribs as he sped down the empty streets, the town lights blurring past. He didn't care about speed limits. He didn't care about anything except getting to Sarah and Lily. The Whisper Man had called him, which meant he knew where they were. Ethan's pulse roared in his ears. He fumbled for his phone and redialed Sarah's number, his breath coming in panicked gasps. 1 ring. 2. 3. Then, hello? Ethan nearly collapsed with relief at the sound of Sarah's voice. Sarah, listen to me. You need to get out of your mom's house. Now. What? Ethan, what's going on? There's no time to explain. Just grab Liliana. A small voice interrupted from the background. Mommy, he's here. Ethan's stomach dropped. His foot slammed on the gas pedal. Sarah, get out of the house. Sarah's voice sharpened with fear. Lily, baby, what do you mean? Who's here? A silence stretched across the line. Then, a whisper, too faint for Ethan to make out. Sarah let out a sharp gasp. No, no, stay away from her. A rustling sound. A thud. Then Lily's voice shaking. Daddy? The call cut off. No. Ethan bellowed, his entire body surging with terror. He gritted his teeth and pushed the car to its limits. He wasn't going to be too late. He couldn't be too late. When Ethan screeched into Sarah's mother's driveway, the house was too quiet. The front door was ajar, swaying slightly in the wind. The porch light flickered erratically. Ethan bolted out of the car, nearly tripping as he ran up the steps. Sarah. Lily. No answer. His mind screamed at him to stop, to call the police, but his body moved on its own. He shoved the door open and stepped inside. The living room was dark. The furniture was overturned, signs of a struggle. A lamp lay shattered on the floor. Then he saw it. A small, wooden figure on the coffee table. Another crude carving of a man. Ethan's stomach twisted violently. His breathing became ragged. He stepped forward, scanning the shadows, every nerve on high alert. A noise. A soft creak from upstairs. Ethan's whole body stiffened. He turned toward the staircase, dread pooling in his gut. Slowly he climbed, every step feeling heavier than the last. Halfway up, a whisper drifted down from above. You took her from me, Ethan. Ethan froze. The whisper man was here, and he had Lily. Ethan ran up the last few steps, his fists clenched. At the end of the hall, Lily's bedroom door was slightly open. A dim glow seeped from within. Ethan didn't hesitate. He kicked the door open, his breath catching. Sarah was on the floor, her back against the wall, her arms wrapped tightly around Lily. Tears streaked her face, but she was alive. And standing in front of them was the Whisper Man. His head tilted at an unnatural angle, his dark eyes gleaming. His lips curled into that eerie, too wide grin. You should have stayed out of it, Ethan, he whispered. Ethan's fury ignited. He was done being afraid. Without thinking, he lunged. Ethan charged, his fist swinging with raw fury. But the Whisper Man moved, not like a normal person, but like a flickering shadow. 1 second he was standing still, the next he was just out of reach, his body twisting unnaturally. Ethan stumbled forward, barely catching himself before hitting the floor. His breath came in ragged gasps. Sarah clutched Lily tighter against her chest, her eyes wide with terror. Ethan, the Whisper Man let out a low, rasping chuckle. You never should have come looking, Ethan, he murmured. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. Ethan's mind was racing. This wasn't just some deranged intruder. There was something wrong with him. Something inhuman. But that didn't matter. Ethan wasn't letting him take Lily. His hands curled into fists. Get away from my daughter. The Whisper Man's smile widened. She's not just yours, he whispered. She was mine long before you knew her. Ethan's breath hitched. What the hell are you talking about? The Whisper Man's dark eyes gleamed. She remembers. Even if she doesn't want to. He took a step closer. And now she's coming home. Lily whimpered against Sarah's shoulder. I don't know you, she whispered. Please go away. For the first time, the Whisper Man's expression flickered. Something like pain. Ethan seized his chance. He lunged again, this time tackling the Whisper Man with his full weight. They crashed to the ground, rolling across the floor in a violent struggle. The Whisper Man was unnaturally strong. His fingers clawed at Ethan's arms, his breath rattling like dry leaves. But Ethan fought harder. With a burst of strength, he punched the Whisper Man square in the face. A sickening crunch echoed through the room. For a second, everything went still. Then, the Whisper Man let out a horrible, inhuman screech. His body convulsed, twisting and cracking as if something inside him was breaking apart. His form flickered, shifting between solid and something else entirely. Ethan scrambled backward, grabbing Sarah and Lily. We have to go now. Sarah didn't hesitate. Clutching Lily, she ran toward the door. But before Ethan could follow, the Whisper Man's hand shot out, gripping his ankle with iron-like strength. Ethan let out a strangled yell, struggling against the grip. The Whisper Man's face was warping, his mouth stretching, his eyes sinking into hollow darkness. You can't take her from me, he hissed. Ethan gritted his teeth. With one last burst of strength, he kicked hard. His foot connected with the Whisper Man's chest, sending him skidding backward across the floor. Ethan didn't wait. He ran. Sarah was already outside, fumbling with the car keys, tears streaming down her face. Lily sobbed into her chest. "Daddy, hurry." Ethan sprinted toward them. But as he reached the car, the house behind him let out a deep, groaning sound like the walls themselves were collapsing inward. And then, a whisper carrying through the wind. "This isn't over." Ethan didn't stop to look. He jumped into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut. The tires screeched as he floored it, the house shrinking in the rearview mirror. Lily sobbed in the back seat, her tiny hands gripping Sarah's arm. Sarah clutched her tight, murmuring soothing words even as her own body trembled. Ethan's grip on the wheel was like steel. His breath came fast, but his mind was clear. They were not going back. Ever. Ethan drove for miles, his hands clenched around the steering wheel like a vice. He didn't know where he was going, all he knew was that he had to get as far away from that house as possible. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, her face pale, her arms wrapped tightly around Lily. Their daughter had cried herself to exhaustion, her little body trembling as she clung to her mother. No one spoke. The silence was suffocating. Finally, after nearly an hour of driving, Ethan pulled into a motel parking lot on the outskirts of town. The flickering neon sign buzzed faintly, casting eerie shadows over the cracked pavement. Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with exhaustion and fear. "Ethan, what was that?" Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't have an answer. All he knew was that the Whisper Man wasn't just some lunatic. He was something worse. Inside the motel room, Ethan locked the door behind them and double-checked the windows. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Sarah tucked Lily into the bed, brushing the girl's damp hair from her forehead. Lily stirred but didn't wake, her breathing uneven. Ethan sat at the small motel desk, his laptop in front of him. He plugged in the tiny recording device he had hidden in Lily's hair days ago. He had one last hope, maybe, just maybe, the recorder had captured something that would help him understand what they were dealing with. Sarah sat beside him, her fingers digging into her arms. "Do you really want to hear this?" she whispered. Ethan didn't hesitate. He hit play. At first, there was nothing. Then, a soft creak, the sound of Lily's bedroom door opening. Lily's small voice whispered, "I don't want to play tonight." A silence. Then, a whisper crawling from the speakers. "But you used to love our games." Sarah clapped a hand over her mouth, muffling a sob. Ethan clenched his fists. The recording continued. Lily whimpered. "Go away." A rustling sound. The Whisper Man shifting closer. "Oh, sweet girl," the voice whispered. "You can't run from me. I've been with you since the beginning." Lily's breath hitched. "You're not real." A pause. Then why do you remember me?" Sarah's hand shot out, slamming the laptop shut. "Turn it off." Ethan stared at her, his pulse hammering. "Sarah, what is he talking about?" Sarah's eyes were wide, her face pale as a ghost. She looked down at Lily, then back at Ethan. I don't know," she whispered. But the way her voice trembled told Ethan she was lying. And then, a tiny voice broke the silence. "Lily." Still half asleep, she murmured, "He used to visit me in my dreams." Ethan's blood ran cold. Sarah stiffened. Lily's small fingers clutched her blanket. "Before I was born. He said he was waiting for me." Ethan and Sarah exchanged a horrified glance. Lily's eyes fluttered open, glassy with exhaustion. She blinked up at them. "I don't think he's ever going to stop," she whispered. A chill spread through the room. Ethan swallowed hard. No. He wouldn't let this thing take her. His hand tightened around Sarah's. Whatever the Whisper Man was, whoever he had been before, it didn't matter. They would protect their daughter. They would never let him win. Even if he was still out there. Still waiting. Still whispering. A week later, the family moved across the country. They changed their numbers, left everything behind. Ethan never told anyone what had happened. But sometimes late at night, he still listened to that last recording. And in the final seconds, just as the audio cut out, he always heard the same thing. A whisper. Soft. Patient. "I'll find her again."